Perhaps you have been one of those who, as a leader, finds yourself reacting emotionally to the environment around you. Not necessarily logically, not in a way that's pre-planned, but in a spur of the moment, a knee-jerk reaction, you react to exactly what's happening right now. And you find yourself later regretting either the words that came out of your mouth or the actions that you took in that moment. Today I want to talk about how that challenge to our emotional psyche is a challenge for the quality of our leadership, both short-term and long-term. Welcome to Leading Leaders Podcast, 5-minute videos, 5 days a week. Now, people who've known me for a long time, most of my life, have seen me go through spells of temper tantrum. When I was a kid, it was really bad. Up in my 20s, I remember a particular instance where I was walking home from the fire department. It was while I was in the military. I'd received a letter from home from my girlfriend at the time, and it was the first one that I'd received. It had been months since I heard from her. And as I'm opening my letter, walking home from the fire department, this water sprinkler that's laying in front of the base, I think it was the car transport place where they take care of all the cars, the motor pool, it fell over. And when it fell over, it was aimed in such a way that it covered the entire street. There was no way to get away from it to the right because there was a fence, and I couldn't run to the left without just running further into the water. But it saturated my letter before I got to read it. And it literally, the ink was running off the page, and I was absolutely heartbroken and furious at the same time. I was so mad that I pictured myself. Now, it didn't actually happen, but I pictured myself running over and grabbing the sprinkler by the hose and slamming it against the wall until no water would come out of it anymore. And that moment of rage envisioned in my mind, which was never carried out, but that moment of rage envisioned in my mind caused me to ask the question, what good would that do? The ability to think through it, the forethought, challenged me to ask the question, would you really accomplish anything by acting out on this emotion? Now, I can tell you that prior to that occasion, there were a lot of times that either my mouth got me in trouble because I emotionally reacted to something, or I would physically get into a scuffle, if you will, nothing big, but a scuffle about the things that made me mad. There was a season, even in middle school, that looking back now, I would consider myself to have been a bit of a bully. And people who knew me then could probably confirm that. I hope that I've grown out of all of that. But what I haven't grown out of is passion. And I want to make a clear distinction. There's a big difference between being passionate about what you care about, passionate about the things that you've taken possession of, the things that you own as an idea, the things that you've researched, that you are thoroughly committed to. Passion about those things is entirely different than anger and frustration. And if you need to do some research on the psychology of that, please do. Look for anger versus passion. The challenge is what we see a lot of today in our society is the number of people they've identified passion as a problem. If you're passionate about anything, then you might be too intense. If you're passionate about anything, you might be just right on the edge of exploding. You might be right on the edge of losing control. And the reason is that so many people who are passionate are also highly emotional creatures. And passionate, emotional creatures do have a tendency to run a little hot-tempered. It's the maturity that allows you to tamper those things down without losing the passion. A good example of that would be someone like Colonel Allen West, who has the ability to ratchet up the passion when delivering a speech, but when you talk to him one-on-one, he's very even-keeled. He's a very just normal kind of guy in conversation. But when he's on the platform, the passion is clear in his enunciation, in the volume of what he has to say, in the directions that he gives. And I can imagine as a colonel in the military, he would have been the same way. There would have been people who would have mistaken his passion for anger or frustration. But I don't think that's what's there. I'm not saying it ever was. I'm just saying when you watch him now, there's a lot of passion that doesn't necessarily have to be frustration and anger. I can also say that there are a lot of people who have intentionally pressed down their passions, maybe even unplugged from their passions. They've released the passions of their life into the ether world so that they don't come across as too intense, so they don't come across as angry or frustrated. In fact, there are a lot of people who have equated passionate men with toxic masculinity. I don't think that's the case. I do believe, as in my own case, that passion that bleeds over into anger and frustration, or that passion that mixes together with anger and frustration, those two can be a volatile combination. And a lot of domestic abuse, a lot of violence can come from that. When that passion is not bridled, when that passion is not controlled, especially when that passion finds no means for expression. Now, as a leader, I would expect that you would be passionate about whatever it is you're leading. If you're leading a team or leading a family or leading an organization, I would expect that you have passion toward the outcomes of that team. I would expect that you would invest yourself almost to the point of a zero-sum game of commitment to say, if I risk everything, I will see this through. But that passion shouldn't be anger. That passion shouldn't bleed over into frustration. The challenge, obviously, as a leader is when you begin to see that frustration couple itself with your passion. The frustration of being passionate about seeing something accomplished, for an example, but it not happening again and again, or the ideas that you have being thwarted by others over and over and over again. Those things will cause your passion to become frustration, which can become anger. Now, I may be the only one that sees those things on a gradient scale, that moving from passion to frustration to anger is a progression. But in my own life, I've witnessed it time and time again. The things that I'm passionate about, if I don't see them come through, then it's an intentional and conscious choice for me not to accept the frustration and express the anger. If that's you as a communicator, as a leader, if you find yourself passionate about a topic that you want to have a conversation about, and the people around you either don't get it or won't let you fully express yourself, just challenge yourself not to allow the passion to turn into frustration and express itself as anger. In that moment that you get angry, you will lose control of the conversation. You might even lose control of yourself in the way that you express the thoughts that are coming out of your mouth and the actions of your body. So you've got to take a conscious path. You've got to choose to keep that under control. And if that means taking your passion and walking away for a moment, or maybe even from a leadership standpoint, separating yourself from those people who can't express the passion to the same level or accept your passion. It may be time to simply find another team to lead. It may be time to say, my passion doesn't fit here, it's time to move on. That's a challenge for most leaders because we take possession and ownership of the things that we've led, that we've invested in, that we've committed ourselves to. And sometimes the project has outgrown us, or we've outgrown the project. And we've got to be real enough with ourselves to say, it's time to move on. Regardless of where you stand in your relationship to the team or the organization, there's almost no time that losing your cool, whether it's one-on-one with an individual in front of a team or from the platform in front of a large audience, there's almost no time that losing your cool, losing control of your frustration and anger will benefit you. I'm not telling you to lose your passion. I'm telling you to learn to bridle it. And if that's something that you're challenged with as a communicator, I've been there. I'll be glad to help walk you through that. As a coach of communicators and leaders, that's one of the areas that I am very well experienced in by my own demise, and I'll be glad to help you with it. As a leader, I want to challenge you, though. Make sure that you don't unplug your passions from life, but get control of your frustrations and anger. It will benefit you in the short term and in the long term. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day. Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom.